everybody, and welcome to the Women's Soccer Show. I'm Allie.
And I'm Sarah. You never know what to say right after that.
I know, I never do.
Hello, Allie. How are you doing?
I'm shattered, is what I'm doing.
Why are you shattered?
I just want to say a shout out to our Instagram followers that kept me sane on my 15-hour journey yesterday. 4 a.m. start to get down to Brighton for a 12 kickoff was less than ideal.
Yeah. Before we get into the football of it all, because what a weekend. NWSL, second to last regular season game. Coming up this weekend on the final regular season game, we've got WSL in full madness. But what you're all here for is, of course, the update on how this fantasy league is going so far, week 2. And I just learned that my captain gets double points.
Yeah, so if anybody who's following our league will see, Sarah is currently in 52nd because she had a terrible
middle of the pack,
week.
Baby, middle of the pack.
No, you're not even middle of the pack. You're like towards the bottom.
No, we've got like 100 in here, so I'm definitely middle of the pack.
Yeah, because Sarah didn't figure out the rules of fantasy and I was like, oh yeah, the reason I got points this week is because Macca's my captain, and I think that's a good thing. You're like, wait, you get more points, my captain?
Yeah, I did not know that. Well, also it'll help when I set my lineup finally, because I keep forgetting to set my lineup. Listen, I know there's people out there that play fantasy and they have the exact same problem as me. Like right now I'm telling myself, okay, when we finish recording, you are going to go set your lineup. And I guarantee you the moment we end recording, I am not going to do that. I'm going to forget.
And then it'll get to Friday and you're like, oh, I forgot.
Yeah. So the second week in a row, I forgot to set it. I've got Katerina Macario starting. She's still injured. I've left Hannah Blundell, Ebony Salmon, Mia Fischel, like lots of points on the bench. I really need to get on it. I've got a good squad. I really do.
You need to get your act together. I, however, had an amazing weekend, it looks like, and I've jumped up to 9th. So I'll take that.
Well. Okay, but let's give a shout out to those of you at the top of our league. My goal is to catch you because this is only round 2. We got a lot of games left in the season now.
Yeah, so currently at the top, and probably, like, if we could give a prize for my favourite team name, this would be it, because it's so British, it's untrue. So it is, you're taking Lettice, which made me laugh.
I love that.
They are currently topping our leaderboard, closely followed by Give Me Pain and I'll Hit You With a Cane, so who was up there last week. So it's all to play for, and by all, I mean absolutely nothing, apart from the smug satisfaction of winning.
All right. Enough of that. Let's talk about reality of football, not fantasy football.
So we are going to start off with the penultimate games of the NWSL regular season. Let's not forget that, folks. And the playoff places are this close to getting cemented.
Are they?
We know 2 of them.
Yes.
We know 2 guaranteed ones. So a quick reminder for all of those that are not 100% familiar with playoffs. So you have your regular seasons. Each team plays each other twice. And then the top 6 teams go into a playoff to then go into a mini tournament of such to then win and be declared the winners of that particular season. The top 2 teams from the regular season get a bye week, which means they won't play in the first round of the mini tournament, but the 3, 4, 5 and 6th seed will. Did I get that right?
I'm so proud right now. I'm so proud of you. I thought I was going to have to do that. I'm so damn proud of you, and that was a perfect explanation. I am so proud of you.
So as I mentioned, we do have 2 guaranteed players in the playoffs, and that is Portland and San Diego. They are also guaranteed to get the bye week because no other team can catch up either team on points, because I believe Portland are on 35, San Diego are on 34, so even if they both lost next week, nobody can catch them up.
But for however much it matters, you do still win the NWSL Shield when you win the regular season. So the Shield is very much up for contention right now. And Portland and San Diego will be playing next weekend to see who gets the Shield. So it's not all like they can't just sit back right now, or they shouldn't be sitting back right now. Now, while we have 2 teams who have officially secured their spot in the playoffs, we also have only 2 teams that have been eliminated. Kansas City and Chicago are the only 2 statistically eliminated teams. Now, what this actually means is that there are currently 8 teams fighting for 4 spots right now. And that is what this coming weekend will be. Oh my goodness. You can't really write it better than that.
Is this the closest it's ever been?
Oh, absolutely. Now, it is close, but there are also teams like Houston that are in scenarios that it just kind of makes me laugh, where it's like Houston have a chance, but in order to make the playoffs, they need to win versus Orlando in their last game, and then they also need OL Reign, Angel City, and Racing Louisville to lose. Plus, in Houston's win against Orlando, they need to score at least 4 goals, and they need to have OL Reign in their loss go either 0 or negative on goal differential. And that is how Houston can make the playoffs. So, yes, there's 2 teams eliminated, but Houston, it's going to be a tough climb for sure.
But you never know. As we learnt last year in the WSL with Leicester and the Great Escape, anything can happen. We can't say no.
Absolutely anything. But let's talk, before we head into next weekend and talking about the last game of the regular season, let's rewind and refresh, because there were some wild games from this past weekend, from the penultimate games. What just happened? This is what I'm calling our new NWSL segment. We're going to title it, What Just Happened? A new NWSL segment, because I feel like that happens too many times. We're just like, oh my God, NWSL.
Yeah, absolutely. It was crazy. So the big one, I have to say, is probably and it's not the crazy scoreline one, it's North Carolina and San Diego drawing.
I thought you were going to say the crazy one was the wild scoreline, Kansas City versus Chicago, because you straight up texted me, and I was shocked that you texted me, because I was like, isn't it like 2 a.m. over there? And I get a text from Allie being like, what's going on in Kansas City right now?
Yes, it was 4 a.m. I believe. I don't know why I was up. There we go.
It was just that good of a game.
Yeah, it was that good of a game. I was like, what the hell happened?
So which one do you want to start with? Because it's funny, because they were on almost at the same time. And I turned on North Carolina, San Diego, because that was the one I was like, this is a heavyweight battle. This is going to be a blast. And it was, but the chaos happened in Kansas City, Chicago.
Let's keep our listeners on suspense, and let's talk about North Carolina and San Diego, because I want to talk about what it means, because North Carolina are in trouble. Let's talk about it, because ignoring tournaments, ignoring the Challenge Cup, North Carolina haven't won any games in the last 7 games.
Yeah. Winless in their last 7, 4 draws, 3 losses. Technically, their last win in the regular season was July 1st versus Houston, and yet they're still in playoff contention. It's mainly because they had a streak right before the World Cup started where they had 6 wins, 1 draw, 1 loss, and they were just on fire. But frankly, since the World Cup ended and this league has resumed, because if you'll remember, mainly we played Challenge Cup here in the U.S. during the World Cup. So since this league really has resumed, North Carolina have not been doing that well, and they're surviving, frankly, on the draws.
Yeah, absolutely. Which I always think of North Carolina, they are the team that you always associate in having such a pedigree. They're always the team that they're up there for me with Portland and Reign, like as a team that you always expect to do well. They've always got that something about them. So it is concerning, I would be, if I was a Courage fan, to be like, you've come back from the World Cup and you've got nothing.
Yeah, it'll be very interesting this weekend, because coming up, North Carolina are playing Washington Spirit, and this, like, there's gonna every game is a game to watch, and we'll come on to that. But Washington and North Carolina right now are tied; they're even on points. So North Carolina now really is in a position where they have to play themselves in, and a draw may or may not be good enough. But it's funny, it's interesting you say that, because, you know, I've mentioned that San Diego Wave last season, they were so strong and they could not close out the regular season well, and that bled into playoffs. And right now, we're seeing San Diego close out the regular season pretty strong. I mean, they've secured that bye week, which it's something that they failed to do last year. But I really do think that this was a battle. It was a heavyweight battle between 2 teams that you think of both of these teams and you think of their attacking qualities. And it's funny that this was a 0-0 draw. And I think it really speaks to both of these teams, because yes, you think of their attacking qualities, but actually where both of these teams thrive, and why I think North Carolina has so many draws, is that Neither of these teams let in goals. Their defenses are absolutely unreal. Both teams have let in 22 goals on the season. That's the second lowest in the league, only behind Houston. Poor Houston. If only Houston hadn't let go of all of their goal scorers, they'd probably be sitting pretty right now. But this is an important note as we head into, the last game of the regular season and into the playoffs, is that this game, it was a heavyweight battle of the defenses. And actually, I would hang my hat on both of these teams, because I think in playoff situations, the defense is going to reign supreme. Defense will win you a championship.
It's true. It's true.
All right, we have to talk about Kansas City versus Chicago, because this game was, I don't even have, what is the word for this game? I don't know. I think it's just that the NWSL was NWSLing. Kansas City won 6-3. I don't even know if there's a goal to point out. I mean, some great ones, some shameful ones. Probably the best goal of the season in this game and probably the worst goal of the season in this game. Poor AD Franch. I didn't want to bring it up.
I was going to say the own goal was just...
You know what? I had that happen to me on the field this weekend with, sometimes you just take your eye off the ball for a second. Something weird happens and it rolls under your foot. And it just sucks that when you're the last defender and it goes in the goal, that's what happens. But I mean, Kansas City, all credit to this team. And Lola Bonta, shout out to our queen who did another twerking celebration. She truly is. She reigns supreme when it comes to celebrations.
Yeah, no, hers are pretty spectacular. But yeah, we've talked a lot about these teams, but Kansas City were like, okay, we're here to play. We are here to play. And Chicago was another team that had a very, very slim chance of getting through to the playoffs. And then that game, it was just a nope.
Yeah, so Kansas City, with that win, absolutely dashed the hopes of Chicago. Chicago now officially eliminated from the playoffs. And we spent some time talking about Chicago in the last episode and mentioning just that because they've been in rebuilding, this is actually, I would say, a very strong performance compared to what we thought we were going to see from Chicago. So I kind of want to spend a moment here on Kansas City, because I think when we look ahead to next weekend and following, I don't think we're going to spend a lot of time on either of these teams because we're not going to see them after next weekend. So let's spend a moment here on Kansas City, because they really are a question mark. They're an anomaly. They can score 6 goals in a game. They've got an absolute star-studded lineup. Lola Bonta, Alex Loera, AD Franch, Dabinia, for crying out loud, Hamilton. I mean, this is the team that was first eliminated from the playoffs. So what do you see for this team moving ahead?
For them, they need to keep as together as possible. I know there's this whole new, and we talked about it, about the free agents and how that can lead to things. I think they just need that time to build together as a team. And we're seeing it towards the tail end of this season. We've seen it, that they are coming together. But if one ends up halfway across the country, and if another one decides to go to Europe, and one ends up in Australia, and it takes that dynamic away, we're going to basically end up where they started, and it's not going to be great.
Yeah, I think you allude to kind of Kansas City's core, and they've got this core that you really do associate with this team now, in Lola Bonta, in Alex Loera, in even Kristen Hamilton, Cece Kaiser, and then they added pieces like they added Dabinia, and they need to keep Michelle Cooper, for crying out loud. They need to keep those core pieces together. We mentioned on the last episode, they dealt with injuries, they dealt with head coach being fired at the beginning of the season, and that's a lot to deal with for a team. So for this team, you look at their record in the past even 10 games, they haven't lost big. If they've lost by 1, maybe 2 goals. And this is a team that's really set up by their organization to do it all. They've got the backing from their owners. They've got their own stadium being built that they're going to get to play in, I believe, next year, the first of its kind in the U.S. They have the potential to attract the talent and be huge. And if they can keep that core together, I do believe that that's going to happen. I hate to say this, but I think the only reason we won't see that happen is if the environment within the organization is toxic and one that doesn't allow for players, even if they want to come to this beautiful facility, play in this beautiful grounds, if they don't want to go there because of that, that's the only reason we won't see Kansas City Star rise right back up to the top, because as a reminder, this team played in the NWSL championship last year.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I do think they can do a Gotham, which is because of where they're going to finish in the league. It's going to bode them well for the draft, if I remember my draft rules well. So they'll be in a prime position for
I'm so
that.
proud of you. You've done so much learning, and you're showing it all today.
But they will be. They'll be in prime position for their draft, which is what happened with Gotham last year. And look how well Gotham managed to take that and build that. So here's hoping that they get rid of the rotten apples in up above, and they can just build on those a couple of little pieces that they need, and then they will be flying again.
Speaking of Gotham had their chance to secure themselves a place to fight for that top spot, to fight for the Shield, frankly. In a really tough game, they were going into Portland. They were playing in Providence Park, and they ended up losing 1-0 to the Thorns. It was a really even match. I really thought Gotham played very well. It was a very possession-based game, and Gotham actually maintained more possession against a team that I think is one of the best possession-based teams in this league in the Portland Thorns. But disappointing loss for Gotham, and now they are left really at least with everything in their own hands, but they are now currently fighting still for a spot in the playoffs.
Yeah, I was going to say it's one thing. I don't think Gotham could have done much more except for score a goal. Like they really went toe to toe with Portland, which we haven't seen that many teams do this season because of the way Portland play. So I think Gotham have a lot to be proud of, and it's just going to kick them a bit that they just secured Portland's place and not their own.
I have to say, Juan Carlos Amoros has done such a good job with this Gotham team and the way he coaches them. And we can talk more about them maybe next week if they make the playoffs or even in the playoffs. But the way he set this team up is the reason they are having the success that they're having right now. And I think if he doesn't get Coach of the Year, as much as I love Laura Harvey, if he doesn't get Coach of the Year, something's wrong.
So that was all last weekend. Now it's all about this weekend. And basically that anything can happen pretty much as we hit the final game of the regular season and those all-important playoff places are decided. There are so many permutations that I didn't do the maths for this one. All down to you.
No, I mean, I didn't do all of the math for this one. I can barely do the math for one team. It's absolutely absurd. Like we said, we have 8 teams fighting for 4 spots right now. This is really huge because for the first time in league history, we're going to do something that the WSL does. And all of these final games of the regular season are going to be played at the exact same time on the exact same day. So we'll absolutely love it, right? This needed to happen.
Yeah, because obviously there is so much that can be then played out if they know what score is, especially how close it is. It wouldn't be feasible. It wouldn't be fair. So I'm glad that you guys have seen the light and are going to play it the European way.
So we don't really have a matchup to watch because frankly, they're all ones to watch. Do what I'm going to be doing. Get out all of the monitors you possibly own and put up every single game on all of the monitors you possibly own. I'm just kidding. I'm actually going to be at the Angel City game. I'm going to be covering the Angel City game. So actually, you guys can all follow us on social. I'm going to put up a bunch on our stories. Head to our Instagram for that. That's going to be a fun one. Angel City versus Portland, though. Portland fighting to win the Shield. They need 3 points, most likely, to win the Shield. Angel City needs a win to even make the playoffs. So that's going to be a massive one. I'm going to highlight what I think is going to be just huge. Washington Spirit versus North Carolina Courage. They're even on points right now. They both have 30 in the standings. This is another reason a game like this is why you need teams to play at the same time, because these two could decide to draw and both get 31 and secure their spot in the playoff, but they're not allowed to do that now.
So you mentioned how, because you guys are all playing at the same time, you can't do the trick of let's draw and both be in there. What does happen? Because like we said, we've got so many teams on 30 points already. So what happens if, we end up with too many teams with the same amount of points?
Right. Tiebreakers, playoff tiebreakers, because like you said, there's a good chance that at least 2 teams end up with the equal number of points by the end of this regular season, right? So what this comes down to in terms of a tiebreaker, the first tiebreaker is goal differential. If you're even on goal differential, it'll go to most total wins. So in other words, if you're even on points, like Gotham and Washington right now are even on points, but Gotham has 8 wins and Washington has 7. So Gotham would advance in that sense. We can keep going because if it comes down to more, I've got the list. Next, it goes to most goals scored across the season and then head to head. So keep an eye on goal differential, everybody, because most likely that's going to be the deciding factor here when it comes down to points being equal.
I like that. We had this conversation before because I hate head-to-head. I think it's stupid. So
we've had this conversation. I think it should be head-to-head, but you know what? Clearly everybody else disagrees with me.
Yeah, just you.
I want to do it. Let's do a little Twitter poll. We're going to put that out. I want to know what everybody thinks. I'm sure we did that at some point, but I forget.
Yeah, we will put another Twitter poll out. Before we move off of the NWSL, some exciting news has come out of the NWSL. So you're going to tell us briefly about the new media deal that the league has struck up.
Well, this is a hot topic because it's always a hot topic when it comes to how to watch women's sports.
True facts.
Yeah. So currently the NWSL is in I'll call it an exclusive deal with CBS, which means that all games are run on some form of CBS networks. So that could be the main CBS channel that everybody gets. It could be Paramount Plus, which many of us pay a subscription for. Or it could be one of their stupid, nefarious channels like CBS Sports Network that nobody gets access to and you can't watch a game on it no matter what, like what happened to me this weekend. So in the new deal, it's a 4-year deal, and it's actually with a lot of different media companies. It'll be a 4-year deal with ESPN, CBS, EW Scripps Co., which I'm actually not sure what that is, and Amazon. And the reason for all of this is that the NWSL is trying to get more reach. They're not necessarily any more focused on this is our niche audience, let's cater to them. They're saying we can get more, let's go out and let's get more audience. And this is great, but also bad for fans who like to be able to tune in and watch it in one place. It's going to be a lot of hunting around for where the games are going to be played. And my personal take on this is that it's all about getting it on the major channels. And that's how this is going to be a win in this new media deal. If it's going to be accessible on ESPN, for example, if it's on ESPN and I just have to turn on the ESPN channel versus if I'm hunting around and it's on ESPN Plus, but I don't have an ESPN Plus subscription, then it's going to be an absolute disaster. So if you can make it on these main channels across the board, across all of these networks, then I think this is going to be a huge win across the board for everybody. And if not, I'm a little worried. Let's go around the world. Around the world, around the world.
Yeah, going to go over to France, and Paris FC remain top of the league after a 4-1 win over Le Havre. Lyon remains second, however, last year's runners-up PSG have fallen to 5th.
And over to Germany, Wolfsburg have jumped to first after a 1-0 win to Nuremberg. Previous leaders Hoffenheim are third, but have a game in hand, which will have been played after this episode was recorded.
To Italy, and both Roma and Juventus are neck and neck after 3 matches. Only goal difference separate the two. However, Fiorentina are not far behind on 7. Once again, this league is not to be slept on.
And finally, over to Scotland. All 3 of the league leaders won over the weekend. Celtic are currently top dog, having won all 9 games so far. Rangers are second with 25 points, in Glasgow City in a close third with 22.
Have you checked out Total Football Analysis yet? TotalFootballAnalysis.com provides researched analysis on loads of football games, including women's football. Want to know why Miedemar scores so many goals? Do you want to explore how City have turned it around this season? Head over to TotalFootballAnalysis.com and sign up to learn more about the beautiful game. We have a special discount for listeners of the Women's Soccer Show. At checkout, type WOSO10 to get a full year for €10. That's €40 off the yearly subscription. Head over to TotalFootballAnalysis.com and type WOSO10 at checkout.
And across the pond to the WSL, the FAWSL, the BWSL, whatever you want to call it, but please don't call it the BWSL. to the WSL, everybody, where there is a lot to talk about game-wise, off the field, everything. It has been a wild first 2 weeks of the season. I honestly can't believe it's only been 2 weeks. So much has happened. But we're going to kick it off first with a small off-the-field topic, we'll say. And let's talk about WSL expansion. And there's a reason specifically want to talk about this is because the great Emma Hayes mentioned it this past weekend in a press conference.
Yes, she did. So she was asked about it and she said, I think the question we should be asking is, when are we going to make our league bigger? It's time to go from 12 to 16 to 18 teams.
Honestly, I love that she said it. I don't even remember what the question was about, but I'm glad she pivoted to this. I think she's completely right, first of all. I absolutely agree with her. This is the perfect moment to expand the WSL. Previously, and here's why. Previously, the WSL has been really like a battle between a few teams at the top. And when that happens, there's no need for expansion. Now, and I think we'll come on to this more later in the episode, the competition level from top to bottom has grown. And we've been talking about this for a few years because it's been growing and it's been getting better for a few years. But this specific year, I think we're already seeing like an exponential rise in it almost at an unprecedented level. And we can already see it from the first 2 games, right? What happens when that happens, it's a really perfect time to grow.
Yeah, I feel like the expansion should have happened like yesterday. We've been talking about it for ages. We've now seen that more championship clubs are going full time, which means that they can support themselves and they can offer players the training facilities, the pay, the lifestyle, all of that. We do need to be careful because we have had teams that haven't had the same backing. I'm looking at Yeovil, who now actually doesn't exist. They now play under Bridgewater FC since they fell out of the WSL. They fell because of financial reasons. We've had it where the Donny Bells was considered not stable enough, I believe, and so Man City took their spot when the WSL was formed and they went down a league and they've now fallen further. So we do have to be careful, but we are seeing that teams are backing their women's teams and they can financially support them. So, you know, you can do it gradually. You can do it now that 2 go up instead of, 1 up, 1 down. We can do it amongst the pyramid, so we can stop having playoffs for, tier 3s, 4s, things like that. So, yeah, it's a positive move if we can get it done.
I also just want to come and kind of bring this competition level thing full circle because, we both agree, I think, that an expansion is useless if it's not going to raise the competition level. But we've already seen it be raised. And I've heard a lot of commentators over the past couple weeks of the WSL talk about how, Arsenal's done if they don't win this game against United because you can't win this game or you can't win this league with more than 2 losses. And I think that's an old narrative. That's the old WSL. I think that there's been the biggest shift we've ever seen in this league, like I just mentioned. And it used to be that sometimes little teams upset the big ones. And now we're seeing those teams actually sustain these upsets. And I know it's only week 2, but I think that we can all see at least a difference in just simple play on the field and how the entire gap has been closed. We talked about the gap in the international game and how that's been closing. The gap in the WSL has been closing. And I don't just mean that the worst teams can compete with the top teams. I mean, the level of play has gone up so much, and that's also what's raising the competition level.
We're an exciting prospect, I think. It used to be that it was an exciting prospect to join Chelsea. It was an exciting prospect to join Arsenal. Was it exciting to join Leicester or Brighton? No, it wasn't, because you get battered apart from when you're playing the teams. We always talked about there was like 3 mini leagues within the WSL, but just as a whole, it is an exciting prospect to play in the UK right now and England specifically. So we are getting that top draw talent coming to all clubs. It's not so much of a shock now when you do see these top level players coming to play for, your Leicesters. They signed Bayern Munich keeper on a permanent this season after having her on loan. And that's exciting because she's been in Champions League level of play. So I think that's the biggest thing, is the reason the gap is closing is because they've gone, right, it's exciting to play in the UK, let's do it.
All right, so speaking of these games, speaking of competition, we've got to talk about some of these games from this past weekend because Leicester City and Liverpool fans, how good are you feeling right now? Sitting up there, waving to everybody below you. You're like, hey, I've got 6 points, and you don't. The only two teams that have won 2 out of 2 games, Leicester City and Liverpool. Wow.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. And you know what? After what we said last week, Liverpool are proving it's not a fluke. You know, they beat Arsenal, and I was like, yeah, well, you did that against Chelsea, and then you bottomed out until Christmas. And then they've gone, all right, we urge you, and then went and beat favourites Villa. Let's be honest, like, going into that game.
I mean, let's talk about that right now, because while we're on Liverpool, there's probably some contingent that's saying exactly what you just said. It's not a fluke. That's 2 games in a row. That's 2 big teams in a row. They took them both down. And then there are other people that I'm sure are saying, well, we're still only 2 games into the season. I'm still not convinced. I'm not impressed. What do you say to that?
I say the problem is like, we are still a short season. We're still a short league. So, like, to take those 2 games early, which could have... It's momentum building, because if they'd gone into those and got battered by Arsenal and then battered by Villa, that's them in the drop zone with Bristol, because that's where Bristol face themselves at the moment. So that would have been already, you've got the mentality of, oh my goodness, are we in a relegation battle? You know, we've got no real hope, you know, and things like that. So, yeah, coming out strong early in the season, even if you don't stay that high up, you're still giving yourselves a good chance that you're going to be pushing for 3rd, 4th, you know, showing intent. And as we've said, as things expand, if you can say to other players, look, we finished 4th last season, come play for us, help us break into those Champions League spots, you know. As someone pointed out, there's not been other than Emma Hayes, there is no manager currently in that league that's won more titles than Matt Beard, because he won back-to-back with Liverpool a few seasons ago. So there is no other manager apart from Emma Hayes that is still in the WSL that has won more titles than Matt Beard.
So let's talk about Liverpool Aston Villa. Let's talk about this game for a moment. Liverpool won 2-0. Oh my goodness. Liverpool are up 1-0 for most of this game. It looked like Aston Villa almost had an equalizer with poor Jordan Nobbs, who just, I was probably in as much disbelief as she was when she didn't put that open net away. And then Liverpool iced it with Natasha Flint in the 77th minute. Listen, when I talk about the level rate being raised, Liverpool's a great example of it. Whereas I think 2 years ago, if a considered bottom team, I'll call it, was playing a considered top contender team and they won, it probably would have been that top contender team had all of the possession, had all of the shots, and that bottom team just got a lucky break. Actually, Liverpool were outstanding in this game.
So, yeah, I want to shout out Emma Koivisto, who, you know, Adriana Leon was doing what Adriana Leon does, was doing this, like, amazing strike from 6 yards out, and Koivisto, like, headed it off the line to preserve Liverpool's slim lead at that point. And it's things like that, like, their back line was tight and was just on it and didn't really give Villa the chance. Like, they peppered the goal with shots, but how many were really on target? Like,
yeah, on the flip side, like you said, Aston Villa, to put no goals away in this game is honestly, that's what I would be most concerned about if I was a Villa fan. To not be able to score in this game when you had the opportunities and you simply couldn't do it, that's concerning. And Villa has had a difficult start to the season. I think some people are probably underwhelmed by them. 2 games, 2 losses, but a difficult loss to United that quite honestly could have gone either way. This, I think, was the first game that I was actually a little disappointed in Villa in.
Yeah, I want to just quote their manager, Carla Ward, who said, "This is one of the worst performances we have put out as a team. We know that. It is a reality check. Everyone's talking about us as a top 4 side, but we are miles off that at the moment."
I think she said it perfectly. She absolutely nailed it. And it's not an excuse, but I do think that missing Kirsty Hansen is huge. And frankly, just to comment on it, I think a 3-game ban for that red card in the United game is just an absurd punishment in such a short season. 3 games in this short of a season, you can't do it.
No, it's the one thing I agree with Gareth Taylor about.
All right, moving on from Liverpool, Aston Villa, we have to, for a moment, touch on the other team sitting at the very top of the table, Leicester City versus Everton. Leicester City took down Everton 1-0 on a beautiful goal by Lena Petterman. Allie, thoughts on this game?
You know what? Things just get worse for Everton is the honest answer. I think Leicester outclassed them, outplayed them. I think towards the end of the second half, Everton were hoping for a draw. They'll get some points on the board. Obviously, Petterman at 69th minute went, nah, not doing that. And so that was it, And I do feel for them, but Leicester are continuing that comeback journey, which is amazing.
Okay, dangerous question to ask here. Leicester City, with how they've played over the past 2 weekends, deserving to sit at the top of the table?
They've played well. I can't say they haven't. They've absolutely played well. They had a great goalkeeper. The goalkeeper's helped saved a pen, because obviously a pen was given to Everton extra time in the first half. However, they've played Bristol and they've played Everton, who are two of the teams that we have flagged as potential relegation thing. I would wait until, not even if they've played like an Arsenal or a Man United or something like that.
Well, actually, I think we're about to see exactly what Leicester City are made of, because in the Conti Cup coming up, they're going to play Liverpool. That's going to be super fun to watch. And then they've got quite the spell of games in the regular season. Next up, they've got United and then Manchester City.
Yeah, so it'll be... And I mean, if they can get something out of those games, that's great. But I think one big thing is to see how they play. Like, if they get battered 6-7-0, then something isn't right, and you can say that they can beat teams of a certain level. But if they manage to control the game management, and they manage to do it where maybe they lose 1-0, a 2-1, something like that, then you can say, you know what, there's hope, there's things to build on.
Either way, there's hope here. This is a wonderful start from Leicester City, and certainly sitting already better than where they were last time.
And the same for Liverpool, because it took them 9 games to get 6 points last season, and they managed it in 2.
Very quickly, we would be remiss if we did not talk about United versus Arsenal, because this was a game everybody had circled on their calendars. Frankly, I actually also had that Liverpool-Aston Villa game because we knew that one was going to be a scorcher. But listen, Friday night, under the lights, listen, this game had everything. Comes out to draw 2-2. This is part of the narrative that kind of annoyed me going into this game, where it's like, if Arsenal lose this, then it's over, I personally, as an Arsenal fan, was worried, because if you do lose, it's never good to drop 2. Did I think it was over if they lost this? Absolutely not. But I think a draw, very fair in this game. A loss for Arsenal would have been absolutely gutting, considering that I actually thought that they outplayed United. But I'm here to throw my hands up and say I might be biased. This game was just a blast. And Chloe Lacasse with the tying goal for Arsenal in the 93rd minute. What a shot. Listen, I didn't think she really was anywhere all game long for 93 minutes. And she wound up to take that shot, and I was thinking, oh, brother. And what a screamer that was. What a worldie.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It was, like I said, definition of a screamer. And you know what? Mary Earps is the best keeper in the world, but she won't get in a hand to that. Like, it was absolutely phenomenal on that. I mean, do we need to mention some of the behaviour towards Russo on this game?
Maybe we do. I'll just say really quickly for Mary Earps, though, she posted on TikTok just a compilation of all of her saves from the Arsenal game, and it was really funny. I don't know why, but she's just really quick, too, while we're talking about goals. Melvin Millard for United, a debut and a debut goal, also a beauty. That was the one to put United up 2-1 that frankly looked like it was going to be the dagger in the hearts of Arsenal. It ended up not being because of the equalizer by Lacasse. This game was so much fun. This is the type of game that when you are comparing leagues, this type of game is an argument for why the WSL is arguably the best league, because the top teams, when they play each other, it's gorgeous.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Some of the best football. I can say that as a neutral. It was some of the best football that you see in the league, and the way they play, and and it was also spicy. It was fun. I love it when it gets a little spicy.
Yeah, I have to say, I have a lot of respect for Jonas Edeval and what he did with his starting lineup, because it wasn't working last weekend, right? It wasn't working that first weekend. So what did he do? He benched Manham, he benched McCabe, he benched Ford, he benched Wubben-Moy. But I have a lot of respect for that, because to bench that many key players in this game, it takes a lot of guts. And not only did I think it worked for the first 75 minutes, but I think then we saw a spark in all of those players when they came on as substitutes that frankly was just missing in that first game.
Also, and we'll get onto the subject when we talk about cards, but yeah, McCabe and Ford managed to get a card within like a minute of coming on.
Was it even a minute though? It was probably the first thing that she did. The only thing I'll say about Russo is, quite frankly, I had nothing to say about it. And then I watched some of the David Beckham documentary over the weekend too.
Yes. And that's the thing. And like, I instantly thought back, and you guys can listen to it back on our back catalogue of talking with Hedvig Linda when she was talking about signing that shirt for an opposing fan and the abuse that she got for doing that. I understand you not wanting a player that has left you to do well. I feel that, like, whenever I look at the Aston Villa lineup, you know, there is a little bit of glee I have where I'm like, we're currently sitting above them, West Ham 2.0. I do. When they come and play us, am I going to boo Lucy Parker every time she touches the ball? No, because football is transitory, and I don't know how many times I have to say that. Football is transitory. People leave. You can be passionate about your own players, but there is absolutely no need to boo every time they touch the ball.
Yeah, I guess I went back and forth. Sometimes the booing really doesn't bother me. It clearly comes from a place of hurt. What I actually don't understand is that, you know, we all know that Russo wanted to stay, and it's actually the club's fault that she's gone. So I think that it's just placing blame on the wrong person, but you got to do what you got to do. As long as no abuse is being shouted at Russo, I'm fine with the booing. You know, it is what it is. But the David Beckham documentary was an interesting thing to pair with that, especially since I was watching him at United. And frankly, for somebody in the US who I didn't see any of that happen live, it's been great. And not to highlight anything men's soccer related, but I like it so far.
So let's talk about the elephant in the room. Let's moving on from booing to, well, there was a lot of booing in the Man City-Chelsea game, but that was directed at a referee. So we have to talk about the whole booking and card situation. Was it someone's birthday because there were more cards than in a Clinton shop or Hallmark for my American cohorts?
All right. Yes, we have to talk about this. 32 cards were awarded this past weekend in the WSL. That's 32 cards over 6 games. 30 yellows and 2 reds. And 2 of those reds came in the same game. One of them I really just need to talk about because I think it leads to a bigger topic, which is, of course, the Alex Greenwood card. Alex Greenwood got a second yellow card for time wasting. And when I texted you about this, you said, yeah, they're cracking down on the rules. You have 20 seconds to take a free kick, and she took 26 seconds to take that free kick, which is over the time limit. Quite frankly, I think this is absolutely absurd. I think this is just ridiculous. I understand, wanting to follow the rules, but for me, what I love about soccer has nothing to do with the ref and the rules. I like the flow. I like the looseness of it. And I honestly do think that it is destroying a game. And it made me sit back and say, at what point does being this strict with the rules actually hurt the game? And I think we've just found it.
Yeah, and the thing is, though, they're cracking down on it, and they also we've been calling for better refereeing, we've been calling for more consistent officiating. We have done. But the thing is, it's still not going to lead to consistent officiating because it's still going to be down to a ref's discretion. And I'll use the example of the game I went to see. I went to see Brighton West Ham over the weekend, and a West Ham player got booked for dissent, quite rightly, because they were gesturing to get a Brighton player booked. That is an instant yellow card. It's the new rule. They all know it. She deserved that yellow. About 20 minutes later in the game, she did quite a crunching tackle on Vicky Losado. And instead of getting a second yellow, which she may have done if she hadn't already been on a yellow for dissent, the ref pulled her aside and was like, you're on your last chance, you're skating on thin ice, do something like that again, and you're getting sent off. Now, what is the difference between my player, who was Ueki, going straight into Lozada and getting a warning, and Alex Greenwood getting a straight second yellow for taking 6 seconds longer than mandated for a free kick. There is no consistency because, one, you could argue is worse because literally Ricky had an elbow into Vicky Lozada's head, and should have been an instant, should have been. So there is no consistency. And then I'm like, are we going to now see more tactical times out? Because our referee's going to go over to a player and go, are you actually injured or not? Like, how are they going to make that distinction? Because are we going to go see goalkeepers going down and they're going to go over and hover over the physio and be like, don't think they're actually injured, yellow card for you because you're time wasting? There is no consistency. I get that you have to cut it off somewhere, but this was like 20 odd minutes, 30 odd minutes into a game. 6 seconds isn't going to make a difference. If she was dilly-dallying and it was like the 93rd minute and Chelsea had been on the attack, I could understand and I could see, and also, that's just different.
Yes, I completely agree. And look, everybody is entitled to their opinion, but I don't understand the people who are like, situations don't matter, it's all rule-based. Situations have always mattered in this sport. When you're carded, when you foul somebody, what that punishment is, it's all situational. The same foul in the box might not be called as it would be if you did it at midfield. Why? Because it might be kind of light and not worthy of a penalty kick. Like, everything is very situational in this game, whether people want to believe it or not. It just is. And I think you nailed it perfectly when you said that actually what needs to change is like the consistency across reffing, and what's being changed is just we're trying to enforce the rules more, thinking that will make it more consistent. And it's not. It's still equally inconsistent. And now we just have to deal with all of this bullshit.
Yeah, and also they're trying to also like clamp down on disrespect to referees, which I agree with. I 100% am behind. I called it out so many times last season. I was sick of petulance. I was sick of seeing players getting away with nonsense with the rest. I agree with that, but what you're actually doing is you're putting a target on the referee's back, because I have never been to a WSL game where the ref is booed and has to be taken off the pitch by stewards for their own safety. I've seen it in the men's game thousands of times. I've never seen it in the women's game. That happened at the Man City-Chelsea game because the Man City fans were so fuming because of what happened with Greenwood, what happened with Hempo. They were fuming, and like, it's going to put so many more refs' safety at risk because fans are going to have one person to direct their anger at if their team loses. And we're already seeing it. Like, if you follow the Ref Support UK Twitter account, you should. You see, like, from grassroots up, the abuse these refs are getting, and this is not helping.
Yeah, totally agree. Totally agree. This is frankly, like, it's a massive topic because this does pertain to the future of this sport and the fact that we saw this many cards. And I feel for City and I feel for Alex Greenwood because, frankly, that was not deserving. And yeah, I think that it's important to keep these conversations going. I'm curious what people who maybe disagree with what we're saying have to say. Obviously, in a kind way, please let us know on social media in a kind way. We're always here for like discourse and, you know, everything needs to be talked about, open the door for everything. But, you know, in a kind way, please, I ask. And that is it for us here at the Women's Soccer Show. We've got WSL Week 3 this weekend, the final game of the NWSL regular season this weekend. It's going to be massive. Everybody tune in, and we will catch you back here on Wednesday next week for the Women's Soccer Show. I've been Sarah.
And I've been Allie.
Thanks, everybody.
Good night.
This podcast was edited by Monkey Hill Media. Visit monkeyhillmedia.com for more information.